good day. Happy Saturday to you. Yes, I'm taking a little bit of a break and I'm working on some cool projects that I can't wait to share with the audience someday, really soon. And I want to celebrate at Embracing Disability and on Embracing What's Possible with Roxy the fact that we're having Autism Acceptance Month. I have an amazing friend and an amazing educator to talk with who is in this world often. And again, because I'm a disability specialist, I know better. Roxy does not have a background in autism. Roxy doesn't hasn't really ever worked with autism. So is it my expertise? No. Am I an advocate for it and I want to see great things for people with autism? Absolutely. But I don't work in that world. I don't play in that world. Um, there was a lot of other names and labels for what this was when I grew up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And none of these labels, neurodivergent, autism spectrum, profound autism, all of these labels, they didn't exist when I was young. They weren't in that vocabulary. And even in the early 2000s, when we were starting to talk in person first language, some of these labels and some of these names that are now around are the new terminologies. I had an interesting thing that happened when I was talking in a podcast conversation and I said, sometimes I don't know these terminologies. And this guy was like, I was late diagnosed. I'll teach you everything. And I'm like, but I've been in the field for 30 years. Am I asking you to teach me everything? He's like, yeah, so you don't look like he was going to be like, oh, so you don't look dumb. And I don't need to look dumb because I've been in systematic change and I am a disability advocate specialist, but that doesn't mean that I know it all. I don't. And that's why I like bringing in experts and that's why I like bringing in colleagues. And I love bringing in experts because they can give us more information about the topic that I love to talk about, disability education and awareness, because I want acceptance in all ways. Kate, tell us about you. I'm so glad you're on my show.
Thank you so much for having me, Roxy. I'm so excited to be here. I am Kate Powers. I am an educator in Boston Public Schools, special education and general education. My specialty is early childhood. I've been working with young children of full range of abilities for many, many years. I am also a mom to two neurodivergent young people, now young adults, almost 17 and 22 years of age. And so, and yeah, I'm late diagnosed myself in that typical nowadays way of perimenopause. The wheels fall off and you have to find yourself all over again and figure out what's going on with your brain. And you're like, oh, we're just a neurospicy household. Okay. Um, and I am an author and coach. So I do wear lots of hats. And one of my favorite hats is being an educator. I love my time in my classroom and I love my students and families. And I'm very excited to be here today, Roxy. Thank you so much for having me.
So it's Autism Acceptance Month. Does anything happen at the school level? Are there programs at the school level? Are we educating the students on being a little bit more nicer to autism? When you're in the educational world, is these acceptance months talked about? Like, are they holidays? How does that go in the school districts? I haven't been in these systems in a long time.
So, as a district wide campaign, no. I work in a unique teaching situation. We are an actual full inclusion school, while also being a public school. We are the only one. We've been around a long time, and I will stay politically correct for all everyone's benefit.
You don't need to stay politically correct on embracing what's possible with
Oh no,
Roxy.
I do if I want to keep my job.
Oh, okay, that's true. Okay,
Uh,
behave
yeah.
and then
So
someday we'll talk about it somewhere else.
yeah. So the school I work at is a two-teacher model. It is a
Mhm.
full-time special education teacher and a full-time general education teacher in every classroom. That is a unique uh, profile for a teaching environment. We've had that environment, that teaching profile for a long time now. It was the original inclusion UDL uh, model and
UDL is universal design.
a universal design for learning. And so
Okay, that's
many
perfect.
of
Thank you. I just want
our,
to make sure that the audience understands
thank you.
acronyms. Hmm.
Um, Many of our leaders from the beginning were very involved in the creation of that work as a uh, bringing it to the world. And so I've had the opportunity to work with some of the folks who created that origin story around universal design for learning and actual inclusion. And so, what that looks like in my classroom or in any of our classrooms at this particular school, which I will not name, um, is we have general education students and we have special education students, and everyone's learning together. And so, I have students with profound autism, nonverbal. I have students that are medically fragile and have an array of diagnoses. I've had students that require one-to-one nurses, and have cognitive range of abilities, along with general education students who have very high levels of intelligence or capacity for learning, and autistic students, students with a disability who also are academically able to achieve in our typical learning systems.
I had
Um,
that.
yeah. And so kind of the full gamut. And so what I have learned over the last 12 years of being in a classroom in this setting is that, really the don't judge a book by its cover. And
Hmm.
pay attention. If you're not paying attention, you'll miss the fact that the 4-year-old nonverbal profound autistic child is actually bringing the tiger uh, play animal over to the letter T poster that you created with the class that morning for letter T week, right? And is putting it on the poster. If you're not paying attention, you
Hmm.
will miss the fact that when the nonverbal student with profound autism is doing this, they want head, shoulders, knees, and toes, right? Things are communication, behaviors are communication, but also these small actions,
Hmm.
these small vocalizations, right? Because nonverbal doesn't mean no sound. It does not mean not able to communicate, and it certainly does not mean not intelligent.
Well, and I think that that's the whole thing. Like, I mean, when I was labeled young, I, they called my learning disability a nonverbal learning disability. And it's like, what does that mean? Who am I? But I'm highly verbal and I'm highly articulate, right? I couldn't be doing this TV show hosting thing if I wasn't, right? And so, I think that, I'm glad you were able to kind of explain some of that. Can you explain what profound autism and what a label that is, my friend? But can
Sure.
you explain what that is and what that means?
So I will explain it from the
A teacher
classroom
lens.
perspective. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. And
please.
so, it's not going to match the DSM-5.
I don't care about that. I like it from the teacher lens.
So the way that the levels, is their ability to care for themselves and
Mm.
how they interact, the amount of support they need to interact with the world, in a safe way, right? And so or access to learning, right? So those are kind of the two things that come into play in a school system is access to learning and safety.
Huh?
And so the more support a child needs, the higher level of autism they are diagnosed with. And so a child with profound autism, depending on the age, right? And so I'm working with 4 and 5 year olds. And so students that at this age it gets tricky because a lot of these things fall under the diagnosis of developmental delay. And a lot of them they won't outgrow, right?
Yes.
And so because it's coming from a different place, it's not coming from an failure to thrive, although they may have carried that diagnosis just because they are not neurologically connected
Hmm.
to certain actions in their body, right? And
Yes.
so
Right. Right.
failure to thrive means that they don't eat
Mm-hmm.
enough as a baby. That's also where you're going to find language, right? It's all in the same place in the brain and in the same place in the body, the mouth, right? And so that doesn't mean that they're not going to ever speak. Oftentimes, we will have students, and there's multiple ways of speaking, right? Um,
Right.
so communication, there's many, many ways to communicate, but most people understand from the lens of verbal, nonverbal, and profound autism usually has a non-verbal component to it, at least in the earlier years, right? And so that child may develop the ability to speak with words. It will never sound like you and I having this conversation.
Correct.
And so they may always need augmented communication support, whether that's with sign language, whether that's with AAC device, whether that's with PECs or topic boards, right? Like a communication book
Hmm.
that has pictures. Nowadays, there's lots of ways to support a child or a person in general with communication. We all have phones
Yes.
that are these amazing computers that we walk around with in our hand, right?
Right.
You don't even need the cart to pull it around anymore, right?
I mean, look, we're recording a
Exactly.
TV show on a device
Right.
where you're taking a nonverbal, highly verbal person and allowing them to do their gift,
Absolutely.
and like, and now you've got technology that's around that can help children, you
Abs-
know, older youth and adults be in the world when before it really was much more difficult.
Absolutely.
Wow, 100% much more difficult,
I mean,
had
when
to
we
be
were
running
growing
around
up,
with my stupid
yeah,
PDA all day long.
exactly. And when we were growing up, to your point, there wasn't the diagnosis of autism yet, right? When we were young. It came about as we were growing up or as teenagers and young adults. But,
Yes.
you know, people who have, as people that are our age, who have diagnoses of retardation, um, severe retardation, right? Like those are terms where now they would be diagnosed as profound autistic. I'm thinking, not that's not everybody, but I'm thinking of particular people that I personally know. And so thinking of their struggling to communicate. We had signs on our streets, caution deaf child or slow deaf child. The child wasn't deaf. There are, that adult now was autistic, but because they couldn't communicate and
Right.
couldn't be safe on the city street, that was one way to provide a little bit of awareness to if you see a trend,
Right.
to be aware. And so there's all of these misdiagnoses, you
And
know,
I smile because at least when you see those signs, you're like, oh, there's some kind of disability awareness sign right here. There
exactly.
was no disability awareness sign when I grew up,
Right,
but now at least it says deaf child slow down.
right.
Whether that child is deaf or not, we do not know,
And honestly,
right?
it doesn't matter, right? It's
No,
just
it
a
doesn't.
signal. It's a universal signal to pay better attention.
Correct. And be a little bit more aware,
Yeah.
and so, let me tell you, I wrote a little, and I might even write an article on this before the month ends. But I wrote a little something something on the whole concept of acceptance, autism acceptance, and I've been noticing that there has been some interesting people on their content creator pages talking that they don't want it to be an autism must. They want it to be autism acceptance. And because I'm in the world, and as I was speaking in the beginning, I'm in the world of disability education, disability general, what is an IEP, what is ADA, and I'm wanting to talk about disability awareness. So, because I think we have to go backwards, because most of the time you're going to hear about Down syndrome, MS, ALS, autism, profound autism, and you're going to hear all these silos. So I think that acceptance and awareness is very important. And I like it in the whole big bubble of disability education because honestly, when I was doing the work back in the early 2000s, I might have worked for Spinal Cord Injury Association, but a lot of times we even blended in with brain
Yeah, I
injury,
was just going to
or
say that.
there
Yes.
could have been a stroke, there
Yep.
could have been a this, there could have been a
Absolutely.
that, right? So,
Yep.
you know, it was always a little bit more, there was silo, but then there was a little bit more collaborative,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so, but again, like there's terminology, dual eligible,
Yeah.
self, what
Yes.
is it, self learning, self um the
Self-led.
video self, what is it
Yeah.
called?
There's one thing that's self-led learning. Um,
Self-led learning, and then like when they graduate, self-directed, that's the name,
self-directed. Yes.
right? So like people fall into the category. Now, if you're going to apply for SSI
You
when they
have to
get
fit the box.
older, there's this documentation that has to happen around their disability. And then they're labeled on this whole structure
Mhm.
of what's their capability, can they work, can they not work, blah, 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 blah. Right? But like, this is what I know. I know the disability education bubble. And so, again, going back to acceptance, because
Mhm.
what I really am advocating for, and you know this, Kate, is I'm advocating for an inclusive world that we accept people with disabilities. And I'm not, and I'm always using my example as a lived experience, that I'm not rejected from society. Or, you watching the content. I was just looking at somebody and they were like, it's really funny. And it is really funny because this is why disability education is important, right? It was really funny that non-disabled people, and this was a quote from one of the content creators, and he was like, it's really funny that non-disabled people will mock disabled people and make fun of them when it's the only population that anybody can walk into, roll into, become tomorrow, right? Only population.
Yep. It's true.
And right? And so, when we're talking about acceptance, there shouldn't be anyone mocking political leaders, whoever, mocking somebody that's different than them. Because tomorrow you can be different like them in a second because you don't know what's going to happen in your life.
And to
And
your point, I think,
right.
I didn't actually answer your original question
Mm,
when you asked about, how do we handle Autism Acceptance Month and teaching children to accept and to include. We teach that every single day. So
that's
that
good.
is a
Thank
core
God.
part of our programming.
Yeah.
It is one of the core values of our school, inclusion. Our name has the word inclusion in it. And
Okay.
so we do a lot of work around um, normalizing those conversations. And I don't mean ignoring differences, right? But
Hmm.
we all have differences, right? We all have
Yes.
different preferences, and we're all on different levels of, somebody in my class might be an amazing Lego master. I am
Yeah.
not. I am not a Lego master. They are better at that than I am. But I'm the
100%.
teacher, right? And so helping them understand and these kind of bringing it to their understanding, but honestly, like bringing it to the greater understanding.
Well, I was seeing a debate the other day. So we're going to talk about apples and oranges. I was seeing a debate the other day that, and in the 90s and the 2000s, the simulation thing was very popular, right? So there was a debate that they were like, well, we don't really want to be showing simulation, on how to orient yourself into a disability and how do you understand somebody who's blind, somebody who's autistic, and then simulating that. Now, on the other end of the spectrum with inclusion, did you see that story in New Hampshire? And I know it has nothing to do with autism, but that story from New Hampshire that Steve Hartman, who just won that award, went and visited that school where they all learned sign language
Yeah.
because they wanted to understand his world and they didn't want, and that child's now happy and thriving and alive,
Yeah.
right? And
And
then,
so, yeah, and that stuff I see every single day. And so
yes,
when you see, sorry, when, part of it
don't
is
be.
when you have young children who have not yet been taught differences, right?
Yes.
Then kids just find each other, right? And so
Right.
and so everyone can be friends. And you can have the
100%.
academically highest student pair up with a student who is nonverbal, who has the capacity for learning 100%, but is not going to be doing math and reading and things on the timeline of this other student, right? And so you could say they don't have anything in common, and that's not true. They're building a whole big construction thing together,
Well,
right? They're coloring together.
exactly.
They have lived shared experience every single day in that classroom.
Well, and think about us as adults in the business world,
Absolutely.
right? Like nobody can sit there and be like, well, Roxy doesn't know what she's doing,
Right.
or that disabled person over there doesn't know what she's doing, because
Right.
we're all trying to build our businesses differently
Absolutely.
with
And it's
passion and
yeah.
purpose. And there's a struggle day, and there's a struggle week, and there's a this, that, and the other. But, again, the children don't know. And then
Right.
and when I was in elementary school in Jersey, it was a different world.
Absolutely.
They literally encompassed us and said little Johnny is going to get glasses. Little Amy is going to go and get her have her shoes done, and she's going to
Yeah.
come in with different shoes today. Oh, Susie Q had to have surgery on her eye. They taught us. And
Yeah.
they taught us about multiculturalism, and they taught us
Absolutely.
about these things when I was little. I was
And we
four,
do
five,
that.
six.
We talk
Yeah,
about all of the things. We celebrate all the holidays, right? Like
100%.
we'll have families come and talk about their celebrations. We've had, I
Yeah.
mean, because every family deserves to be able to share their joy, right? Just like every child, every human should have the opportunity to share their joy. And that's what being inclusive is. It's giving space
Yes. To
to
be happy.
allow someone to share their
Yeah.
joy, right? And in a
I
safe
have a
way.
I have an interesting question.
Sure.
They go to school, they learn all of this, that in their inclusion world, they've been taught to be comfortable, they've been taught to be supportive, they've been taught these things, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Now, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21 kids now go to school till 22.
Mhm.
Here's my question. What happens? Why is that same process not the same when they're exiting the school?
So
Mhm.
I'll start with this and then we'll dive deeper into that.
Yes.
So when you have students that have been together since they were 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, and they have shared a classroom with their classmates of varied abilities and varied modes of movement, and we have wheelchairs,
Right.
we have everything, right? It's different. It's not us them. right? So, like, say Johnny's not on the basketball team, but he's in the stands cheering because although he may not physically be able to be there, he still cares about his classmates who are
Classmate.
on the team. And, flip that around where I had an experience in my first years at the school I teach at, back when I was a substitute there. And I had a fifth grader. I was substituting in a fifth grade class, and I had this girl come up to me and she said, Miss, now let me tell you, he knows how to read. He will pretend he doesn't. He will pretend he doesn't know how to do this. He will pretend he doesn't know how to do that. He's trying to trick you because he thinks it's funny. He will pretend he doesn't know how to speak. Don't let him fool you. And she goes, he's my best friend, and I don't like when I won't let him get away with that. He's too smart. That's what she said to me, right? And she was a gen ed student, right? Like she was, but like she meant it. She was like, and not in a
Oh,
like
he's my best
weird,
friend.
yeah, she meant it. They were genuinely friends.
Right?
She was looking out for him, but also making not letting him be getting off the hook of doing his work that
Right.
she knew he was capable of, right? So
Well,
actual
and
friends,
that's the cool part
right?
because then you're having an advocate
That's right. That's right.
teach, saying, I'm going
Yeah,
to advocate for him because he's going to try to trick you to say that, oh, I can't.
right.
And then she doesn't want him in societal norms, but she
Nope,
doesn't even know that.
that's right.
She doesn't
It
even
was,
know that she doesn't want him in societal
yeah,
norms, that the norms will believe that he's nothing.
honestly, and I still get the chills. I have the chills right now
Right.
thinking about that relationship. And that was one of my first experiences at that school, and it shaped so much for me
Oh God,
about what
yes.
is possible when kids are together.
What is
Now,
possible?
what is possible, right? And so, and I understand, like I am in, I teach littles because that's my passion and that's, where my
Yes.
strengths are. But I've been in high school. I've raised teenagers, I've raised high school students, I
Mm-hmm.
have been in classrooms in high school, and I can appreciate the challenge that co-teaching, that modifying curricula for, 10th grade math, for
Right.
right,
Right. Right.
right, there are challenges. I will not deny that. And so, but there are lots of ways that you can still run an inclusive program
Yeah.
while providing appropriate academics, right? And so
Right.
that was one of the things that we really focused on for a long time.
Well, I would love that a model, and I'm going to try to do this in some of the programming I'm up to, but I would love a model that still had that base of inclusion, right?
Mhm.
And when they turn 22, they leave. And instead of just being lumped into a day program,
Right.
right? Be lumped into a community program
Mhm.
and see what happens when community happens.
Right. Right. And there are programs that are doing great work out there for post-secondary,
100%.
right? There are amazing programs around that are doing exactly what you just said, but they're
Correct.
small. There's limits, right? Because they just
Correct.
don't have they don't have the size to take everybody. They don't have the staff or the capacity, right, to stay within legal ratios. And ratios um, are there for a reason,
Mm,
and so I'm not saying anything about that, right? Ratios keep people safe both ways. So, but that's not the norm, right? And
mm.
so to your point, why can't we bring this more widespread? And it all comes down to funding. I mean, honestly,
Does all come down to
it
funding. I
all
know.
comes down to funding. And honestly, to what you were saying earlier about the silos and this and that, I mean, that all comes down to funding too.
I
And
know.
so,
I know.
and it's a double-edged sword, right?
Yes.
And so, like, you have to have the silos to get the funding for the things and for the people, the
Yes.
individuals, right? So that you
Yes.
can have some sort of criteria around levels of need.
You're not boring me. You're amazing. Mhm.
You also then, by being siloed, do not have the power of numbers. You do
Right.
not have,
Yeah.
and we here in Massachusetts have organizations that do that work. We
Right.
are very blessed. The ARC is an amazing advocacy uh, institution that is, advocating at the state level, at the national level, policy, funding, all of that. Um, and their work matters, and it makes a huge positive impact for people with disabilities in Massachusetts and
Yeah.
actually across the country, because
Sure.
Massachusetts is one of those states that sets precedent, right? And so whether it's in education, and yes, our schools have struggles, no doubt, but when you
Yes.
right, but uh that we have a lot to offer at the same time.
You know, um, I know we're probably getting close to wrap up time, and I hate that. Um, if you, and I know all schools are not the same,
Right.
if you could give some wisdom to some parents that have autistic children,
Mhm.
um, having disabled children, because I don't want to silo, but it is Autism Acceptance Month. If you could give some wisdom to them, what could you say? What kinds of things should they be asking for in the school? What kind of things could they be talking about? What could be done? Parents struggle. We see it all the time in some of
Yeah.
our groups.
So
IEP, I need an IEP. This is really
so
bad. This is really bad.
one of the things is it's hard work. And so
Yeah.
acknowledging that what you're going through as the parent advocate, as the caregiver, what you deal with at home, as well as what you have to deal with through the school, provide, to make sure that your child has what they need, when you might not really fully understand. And this is not talked about. There is a grieving process when you are coming to understand, right? If you had a child that was typically developing, and then age 2 and 3, they are regressing severely. And they were saying words, and now they're not saying words,
Right.
right? And they were able to do certain things, and now they're not. And that's how autism goes, right? That's profound autism. And so there is there is grief, and nobody talks about it. And nobody talks about how hard it is, because you just became a parent forever, like a caregiver, right?
Right.
There is no 18 off to college,
Yeah, your life is
right?
different.
Your life is forever changed in that understanding. And so it's a process. And while parents are going through that process, they also have to figure out the neuropsych, the developmental pediatrician, the
Mhm.
15 different therapies, right?
And
Like
then I'm
there's
going to be
there's
in and out
two.
of hospitals.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Right.
children with autism, with neurodivergent diversity, sorry, they have different immune systems, right? They have different digestive systems. Things don't
Right.
work the same. They
No.
things don't, and they are not able to tell you what is going on in a way that is as useful as a typically developing child or a child that has
Right.
words, right? And so we see it all the time. Uh, things, medical issues that reoccurring, that struggle, infections, because they don't have the same immune system. They don't have the ability to build the same level of immunity.
Right.
That's one of the things about the spectrum, right? About that whole thing. And so everything's harder. It's very hard. If you're a single mom, I was a single mom. I knew I needed a job that gave me their schedule, right? I knew my son needed care that I couldn't get
Right.
in a typical setting. I
Right.
knew by just before he was 3 years old, we had been dealing with chronic ear issue, like all this stuff before you ever even could enter school.
Right.
Like he started speech therapy at 3 years old.
Right.
And so being able to navigate that, and nobody's there's more information now than there
Mhm.
was 15, 17 years ago. Uh, but still, there is such gatekeeping around that information. And it's really hard to know where to contact, where do you get, how do you get an IEP? You have to get a neuropsych. How do you get a neuropsych? Who do you talk to? Doctors are not as helpful as you might think they are unless you
Oh,
happen
oh
to get
no.
into the right program or know somebody who gives you good information.
And
Right.
again, that's right, Kate, like something that like I do or these parent groups are like remarkable
Right.
because the parent groups are like
Okay.
giving each other community building
Right.
and helping each other out because in the early 2000s we had resource coordinators like I did. We don't have that
No.
anymore.
No. No. And in the schools, right? Like families need to know that their hard work is seen, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that it's just acknowledging, like, when the kids are tired and sick and cranky, like, oh, that's okay. That's what I'm here for too, right? It's okay,
Right.
right? And it's hard, and sometimes like just being able to say to a parent, like, parenting's hard. It's a
Right.
hard job. Like, you're doing
Right.
a great job. It's hard, right?
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes parents need to hear that,
Yes.
Um,
Absolutely.
and really just as a teacher, seeing the genius in every child, right? And I know that sounds so
Aw,
like Pollyanna,
yes.
but I mean it. I honestly mean that,
I
right?
know you do because I
And
know who
so,
you are.
right. And so like I I don't need kids to have words to talk to me, to communicate with me. I don't need
No.
that, right? But that's just because that's who I am, right?
Right.
But I love watching the way that they're interacting and processing the world around them.
Hmm.
All kids, I find it fascinating, right? Um,
Hmm.
and so I think that as a person who loves to learn, I love to learn. I learn so much from watching the way that the kids are doing things, right? Because then
Right.
I'm like, oh, that's such an interesting angle to go at that problem with, right? And so if you think about, right, all of the kids are doing that, not just
Hmm.
the neurotypical ones, not just, right?
Yeah.
So being able to understand the ups and downs and the moods and all of that, right?
Right.
Being able to see how that child is engaging with the world around them tells you so much about how they're learning, what they know, what they want you to know about them,
Right.
right? And so it's and they'll tell, like, I'm not bothered by a kid that screams all day, right? Cries, whatever. Because they're not sad, or their system doesn't have another way to express that, right?
Sure. Of
Uh,
course.
And so they can be perfectly happy, safe, content, and still be making a lot of noise.
Mm.
Right?
Yes.
Uh,
Right.
and that's not everybody can understand
And the
that.
life of disability can be messy.
It's
I
messy.
have cluttered piles everywhere.
It's
I
messy.
am messy.
It's messy. And their emotions are messy, right? They
Right.
are not physically developed in one area inside their own systems that to go with the other side of their systems, right? So things are
Yes.
mismatched.
Yes.
And that causes dysregulation, right?
Okay. I mean, we need to be doing things all the time, but we don't have time to be doing things all the time. But it's always an honor and a pleasure to chat with you. And
You as well.
I truly love our relationship. And I just also love
Me too.
being able to talk about these topics
Yes.
and being in that similar world.
Right.
I'm not in systems anymore.
Right.
And sometimes I miss being in systems, but I love being an independent freelancer.
Right.
Right. And, these are the most wonderful things that that people need to know this information.
Right.
And so I'm grateful and I'm happy that we were able to have this dialogue today.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining me.
So fun.
Super fun. I again am your host, Roxy B. Rocker, and I am on Embracing What's Possible with Roxy. I had the amazing Kate Powers, who's this fantastic educator. I wish we had more educators out in the world. If you're an educator and ever want to be on my show, I'm sure we have lots of topics that we could talk about. Please reach out on the Prospera Network. And I'm so glad you were here. And I hope you tune in for Autism Month. Cross your fingers. I am praying that I'm going to get this dynamo 10, 11-year-old child on who sings, dances, acts, models, the whole gamut. And who knows what she'll come on and tell us. But I'm crossing my fingers that I'm going to get this lovely little lady on my show. Um, and she's autistic and she's fabulous, and her mom has just set her up in homeschool so she could live this glorious life of making albums and dancing and running around and doing all sorts of amazing things in the world, so we can actually notice that people with disabilities even at 10, 11, are quite remarkable.
It's true.
This is what I want a world of. I want a more inclusive world. I do my work because I want a more inclusive world. My colleague does something about being felt, seen, and heard. And I think that's fabulous. But I want a more inclusive world. I want society to like go, oh, I'm going to wear new glasses today. Oh, I didn't realize that. I'm glad you opened my eyes. And that's why I love being in media. And I love having my show, Embracing What's Possible with Roxy, and having people like Kate on. It's just pure joy. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.